The silent path to healing. Sigma INFJs are often perceived as quiet, intense, and enigmatic. But when it comes to healing, their complexity reaches a deeper level. They do not turn to group therapy, late-night venting, or external validation. Their process is different, introspective, controlled, and profoundly private. For the Sigma INFJ, healing is not a conversation. It's an inner reconstruction. Where others look outward for answers, they turn inward towards solitude, depth, and deliberate silence. Not because they don't feel, but because they feel too much. And not because they don't need support, but because their healing requires a space untouched by noise, distraction, or superficial concern. Part 1. The need to retreat. When hurt, Sigma INFJs withdraw, not because they are avoiding emotion, but because they feel everything too deeply. They aren't running away from pain. They are moving closer to it, but on their own terms. Withdrawing is not rejection of others. It's an act of preservation. The moment something fractures their world, they instinctively protect the pieces. They understand that healing in front of others often means diluting the process. Friends may try to help, but their well-meaning words can feel intrusive. The Sigma INFJ doesn't need quick fixes or borrowed logic. They need time. They need quiet. They need full access to their emotional terrain without interruption. This solitude is not sadness, it's sacred work. They remove themselves from the stage of daily life, disappearing into routines that provide comfort. Books, music, walks at dusk, deep journaling, long drives with no destination. The world might assume they're fine or distant. But beneath the surface, their soul is slowly stitching itself back together, thread by thread. Part 2. Why solitude works for them. Healing in solitude is not loneliness, it is recalibration. Sigma INFJs are not escaping people, they are returning to themselves. In quiet moments, they remember who they were before the wound. They reclaim their rhythm. In solitude, they are free to break down without explanation. There is no pressure to look composed or to reassure others. The masks come off. There's space for the full spectrum of emotions: confusion, rage, sorrow, numbness, clarity. They may appear distant, but in truth, they are closer to themselves than ever. Sigma INFJs don't use solitude to numb the pain, they use it to explore it. They trace it to its source, they dissect it until it loses its power. That's why their healing sticks. It isn't rushed, it's thorough. Their tools are internal: reflection, introspection, emotional intelligence, and spiritual grounding. They don't require feedback loops, they just need time, truth, and distance. Part 3. Emotional independence is survival. This tendency to heal alone often comes from hard-earned experience. Many Sigma INFJs have learned that sharing their pain too soon, or with the wrong people, only leads to deeper wounds. They've been misunderstood, minimized, and dismissed too many times to risk it again. So they built internal systems for survival. They became their own support network, their own mirror, their own compass. While others are encouraged to open up and talk it through, Sigma INFJs process emotion like a chess game. Strategically, quietly, with deep observation of every internal move. They may accept comfort eventually, but only after they've stabilized internally. Emotional independence is not a statement of pride, it's a form of armor. They don't ask for help unless they've already helped themselves, because that's how they've learned to stay whole in a world that often fails to hold them gently. Part 4. Trust and the rare exceptions. Although solitude is their default, Sigma INFJs aren't incapable of receiving love during times of pain. They just have a different threshold for vulnerability. If they let someone witness their healing, it means that person has proven safe, steady, and present without being invasive. But even then, they share in fragments. They watch closely, measuring not just words, but tone, energy, and timing. One wrong move, one hint of judgment or haste, and the door closes again. Not out of spite, but out of instinct. To be allowed into their healing is an honor. They may not ask for help directly, but if they reach out, even subtly, it's an act of immense trust. And if that trust is protected, they will remember it forever. But most of the time, they choose to remain the keeper of their own recovery. Because for them, healing isn't about being seen. It's about seeing themselves clearly again, without distortion. Part 5. The inner world as refuge. What most people don't realize is that Sigma INFJs have a rich inner world that operates like a sanctuary. It's where they store memories, lessons, hopes, philosophies, and where they retreat when everything else feels unsafe. During healing, this world becomes a refuge. They replay conversations, imagine alternative outcomes, process old wounds, and discover new clarity in silence. They don't just recover, they rebuild. Thought by thought, layer by layer. This inner world is not a fantasy. It's a workshop for emotional alchemy. A place where pain is not just endured but examined and transformed. And the beauty is, it's always accessible. It doesn't require approval. It doesn't depend on timing. It's theirs, and it always will be. Conclusion: healing alone isn't a statement of rejection. It's a form of self-loyalty. Sigma INFJs don't isolate to escape love. They retreat to protect it, including their love for themselves. They are not lost. They are reorienting. They are not breaking. They're rearranging their inner scaffolding, so that when they return, they are even more aligned, more resilient, and more deeply themselves. The world may never see the full extent of their healing. But that's okay. The world doesn't need to understand. Because healing for them is not a performance, it's a promise to rise again, quietly, gracefully, fully whole.